So, Chuck,
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about today?
Best comic book movie ever made.
The Dark Knight?
I'm out of here.
Whoa, wait. Hello and welcome to the Nerd Card. I'm Phil.
I'm Chuck.
And today we're going to be discussing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
We are.
Which, a lot of debate. We're going to get into that a little bit later. What really struck me about this particular movie is the look of the film. The overall look of the film is the best representation we've seen so far of a comic book brought to life.
Oh, well, 100%. It combines cutting edge technology in terms of animation with a look that brings you back to a classic comic book from the 60s or 70s.
Yes.
Down to, you even see that dot pixelation that you'd see in an old comic book page, depending on the light coming into the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's fabulous the way they did that.
There's a lot of really cool shots. I mean, the movie overall is just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And the comic book shots, or the look of the comic book shots, is just, it's so cool.
Well, I love
It's
that
so
it
cool.
starts once he gets bit by the spider, right? You see the panels, the
Yes.
thought panels or the comment panels immediately after that point, but not before.
Not before. They don't occur at all before that in the movie.
It's fantastic.
And the scene where he starts having the thought panels is just hilarious.
Yep.
Act dumb. Who?
Yeah.
Not that dumb.
Right, exactly.
it's hysterical. A lot of attention to detail as well in the animation. We talked about just a second ago, actually, before we started rolling cameras, a lot of what made the old Batman movie, or the old Batman series, the 1966 Batman, really, really corny was the blam, pow. Yeah. All of that crap.
Mm-hmm.
And yet somehow that was incorporated into this movie, and it looks awesome.
Because that was live action and intended to be cheesy.
Yeah.
Right? And this is animated and intended to be a moving comic book, and they nailed it.
100%. Even so, it works for both comedy and drama, though, within this movie.
Absolutely, 100%.
Even like later on in the movie, someone is shot and that animation style immediately changes. The background changes. You see, you feel it along with the audio cues.
Yes.
Just so cool. My favorite instance of it, though, in this particular movie is, you see Thwip when they're shooting out the webs. But my favorite one, hands down, when they are escaping the lab after stealing the computer, Miles throws a bagel at a scientist and it hits him. And when it hits him, it says bagel.
Yeah. No, and it's
hilarious.
You're right with the audio cues, how they incorporate it in, and the visual cues with the bagel. I mean, I really like thinking of the things of when his spider sense goes off. It's like in the comic book.
Oh, yeah.
And the audio cue with the spider sense, the danger noise,
Right.
particularly the prowler.
Yeah. Yes.
Is really great when that happens in this film, and it just adds to it. It just really sucks you in and draws you in, and you can't help it. Every time I watch this movie, I love it more.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I've seen this movie 6 or 7 times now, and every time I watch it, I see something I didn't see the first time.
It just brings you in. You're never bored.
Yeah, you're never bored, and I watch it all the time. I love this movie. Another thing that really draws me to this movie and us to this movie is the overall story and the performances contained therein.
Oh, absolutely.
I said therein, so grown up.
It happens to everybody.
It's a drama, it's a comedy, it's both of those things intermixed together in a
dramedy,
a really beautiful way.
Absolutely, it's very well done.
Yeah, the comedy's on point, and it still hits you in the feels. There's a prominent death in the movie. Miles' uncle is revealed to be the Prowler, and that's one of those moments.
Spider-Man dies in the movie.
Yeah, well, Spider-Man dies in the movie, but the one that really hit me was the Prowler dying in the movie. It was a shock that he was revealed to be the Prowler in the first place, and then his death coming later on just it hits you. I cried during this movie,
and that hits you. It hits you, in the beginning when the original Spider-Man Peter Parker dies. It hits you then when the other Peter B. Parker that's thrust into our universe, or this universe that the movie takes place in, sees MJ, and he's, longing for her because he's divorced from her in his reality. Well, right? That hits you.
It's played for a laugh, but it still hits you.
No, it hits you. And then it also hits you when you see at their Aunt May's house in Spider-Man's lair, and you see the original Spidey suit, and you see Miles reflected in it as he's looking up at it, with the implication of he's trying to live up to this legend. All of that stuff really just gets you.
It's huge, and that goes back to the overall look of the film. There's a lot of powerful imagery in the movie, just super.
Especially also in that powerful imagery when they harken back to Sony's live action films and kind of tie them into the movies in the very beginning with the actions of Spider-Man.
That is so stinking cool.
And it's great that, again, this movie is a fine piece of art. That's one of the reasons of why it's the best comic book movie ever made. And like a fine piece of art, it starts with, hey, I'm the one and only Spider-Man for the last 30 years. My name is Peter Parker. I said that wrong. My name is Peter Parker. I'm the one and only Spider-Man for the last 30 years. And it ends with Miles Morales saying, I'm the one and only Spider-Man for the last 2 days.
For the last 2 days, yeah.
Right? And it's a good piece of art, brings you 360 into it. And this film does that.
It does. And that's a consistent theme throughout the film. I mean, that happens several times throughout the film.
Yeah.
My name is Gwen Stacy, and
every
for the last I've been the only Spider-Gwen. It's every single iteration of Spider-Man. And it's done well each time, but you're absolutely right. It's that loop. It starts out that way, it ends that way, and it's just a beautiful movie. It's so well written.
And the relationships, I mean, you mentioned Gwen Stacy, who, as we know as Spider-Man fans, Gwen Stacy's one of Peter Parker's love interests, along with Mary Jane.
Yes.
And the Black Cat, too, which we haven't really seen in any movies that often, some of the cartoon stuff. But
right, not live action. Yeah.
It's interesting in this one how Gwen mentions that, she's Spider-Woman, actually, she says. She didn't even say Spider-Gwen. She says Spider-Woman. Mm-hmm. And she mentions that her best friend, Peter Parker, died. But now you see that, and that could have been her love interest, but you see that now she's Miles Morales' love interest, and he's Spider-Man.
Right.
And she's Spider-Woman. And it's so cool to see. And then, like we already mentioned with the other Peter Parker and Mary Jane, it's just all that stuff. It's so subtle, the way they do it in the subtext, but it's all there.
Yeah.
It's just great.
Well, it's just an intricately written movie.
Yeah.
And the story is so good. But what really brings this movie, or sets it, I don't want to say sets it apart from the other Spider-Man movies, because every Spider-Man movie has had a good villain.
Yeah.
However, this one's got a whole boatload of them.
One other that does it well, too.
Yeah.
But this is one of only two that does it well with multiple villains.
It is. You're absolutely right. In each other iteration where they tried to introduce multiple villains, it kind of fell flat.
It gets jammed together. Anytime you're doing, I mean, come on, who hasn't seen Batman and Robin? You know, Batman Forever. You slam too many villains together in any superhero franchise, it's too much.
It starts to fall apart. But this one does it really well, with Kingpin being the main antagonist. Mm-hmm. But working together with Doc Ock in a way that...
her friends call her Liv.
Her friends call her Liv. Our enemies call her Doc Ock. So I'll call her Liv Ock.
Played by Catherine Hahn, who did a fabulous job.
Catherine Hahn's just great in everything. So
Agatha Harkness. I mean, she's awesome.
Yeah, there it is. But they play off each other so well, and it's more like, I don't know. They're in such a cooperative way that it works. It makes sense to the story. There's no questioning who the villain is.
No,
because it's all of them. Heck, the Green Goblin's in there.
He is briefly.
I mean, they threw everybody into this thing. This movie should have been a mess, and it wasn't. It's not.
It's brilliant.
It's absolutely brilliant. So now that brings us to the main crux of this thing, which is really, and I know I can speak for Chuck when I say this, I feel this is the best comic book movie of all time.
100% best comic book movie of all time. There are other contenders.
There are.
The Dark Knight is a contender.
Yes.
Endgame, Infinity War, because it's really one movie, is a contender.
Yeah.
And then, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right.
is a contender also.
So you got 2 Spider-Man movies in there. 3 if you count Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah, I mean, well, Spider-Man.
Honestly.
Look, I've said it a million times on our channel. Spider-Man is Marvel's #1 character.
It is.
And has been for many, 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 many years. People can argue that. That's great. That's my opinion. That's never going to change.
Well, it's the truth, and the evidence is we have more Spider-Man movies than any other superhero.
Yeah, and he's been...
Except maybe Batman.
Well, right. Absolutely. And in the MCU, the only character who has more standalone movies than him is Thor.
Yeah.
Right. And then Thor has been in more movies than Spider-Man. But that's because, Sony and Marvel's battle over the rights to the character.
Right.
Is the only reason why. So, shouldn't be a shock that Spider-Man movies are amongst the best of all time. And this one is better than all the rest. And the reason that it is really, I think that whole moving comic book aspect for me is what puts it over the top.
I agree.
If you're talking other aspects, The Dark Knight is a fantastic thriller, crime drama.
It is.
Comic book movie. That movie is incredible. And until the Spider-Verse came out, until then, that might have been #1.
Sure.
But Into the Spider-Verse is the top for me.
It really is. And it's exactly as you said, that comic style, the actual moving comic book. It's the closest that we've seen to opening up a comic book and seeing the characters move on screen. It just so cool. With that said, I'm looking forward to what's coming next.
Oh, yeah.
We've got
sure.
Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 coming.
Yeah.
Really soon. And I can't wait. We're going to see, what we saw in the end credits, of course, of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was
Spider-Man 2099.
Poe Dameron,
Moon
Knight, Oscar Isaac.
Worry about me.
And Oscar Isaac would be a great addition, of course. He's going to be a great addition. He is a great addition to the Spider-Verse. I just can't wait to see.
As long as he doesn't try to jump the Falcon and, that was wrong.
Can't lightspeed jump the Falcon.
Come on.
Either way.
Anyway.
I can't wait to see what happens next. They've got my vote of confidence.
Oh, it's going to be, nice Natalie Portman job. Padme Phil Madala.
That's a vote of no confidence, which I do not have. I have a vote of confidence. Absolutely. Nicely done. But I know day one, our butts are going to be in the seats.
100%.
Watching that
For
movie.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Chuck, any other thoughts?
No, I think that's it.
I think that's going to wrap it up for the Spider-Verse. I would like to remind you to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Remember that likes are free. You can like us. Doesn't cost you a dime. It'd be great. In fact, you can share us with all your nerd friends so that they can join in the party as well. And with that, we will say,
what's on your nerd card?